welcome to another edition of the Acre Solutions Cropland Genetics Crop Cam. I'm Mark Ullman, Seed and Ground Advisor. Today I have with me Brad Milbrath from FCA Co-op. Today we want to talk about crop nutrition. In previous crop cams we've talked about the macronutrients. Today we want to revisit that a little bit, but then dive into micronutrients, what they do and when they're needed. So we got a screen presentation put together for you today, understanding crop nutrition and then of course how micronutrients affect corn. Plant needs many nutrients, the majors of them being nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. The main zinc ones, the main micronutrient ones are zinc, manganese, and boron. If you do not have your NP and K in balance, your micronutrients cannot express their full benefit. And it's about understanding the elemental prominence and understanding that each crop has a sensitive time to a sensitive nutrition. So corn needs zinc at a certain time. Corn could use manganese at a different time than a soybean plant could. And so each crop is unique with each physiological time of elemental prominence. So Brad, there's some talk out there about raising 300 bushel in average corn in the next decade or so. And so that means some of us are going to have to raise 300 bushels, some may have to raise 400 bushel to bring the national average up. Just kind of go through us with what it would take on both the majors and the micros to get there as far as pounds per acre.
Well, this is a little different than what we've been used to on the 200 bushel corn, but as you can see, raising these 300 and 400 bushel corn crops takes quite a bit more nutrients. We're looking at upwards of 400 to 600 pounds of nitrogen and also close to 200 to 250 pounds of P, 366 and 486 pounds of K, just in the primary nutrients. Then look at our secondaries. We're going to need upwards of a pound of zinc and half pound of manganese, which seems small, but like I said, we got to raise our primary nutrients up to that level before these will even kick in.
So that's good to understand as we start looking at 300 and 400 bushel corn, that they're very important, but they're also important just to go at our current yields of 180, 200 bushel an acre field averages sometimes. So zinc, when we look at the demand curve, the growth stage, you can see the bar chart here on the very left, the dark red, at 60 parts per million zinc in the tissue of a corn plant is at V2 crop stage. And as that plant develops, the need for zinc does diminish, and you get out to R1, basically we're not needing near as much through the grain fill. So very important to have zinc early, the early V to V4 stages, and then again there's still some great demand from V5 to V8, V10 growth stages as well. So getting that zinc early to mid-season is very important. Brad, what does zinc actually do in the plant?
Zinc, the main function is to get that plant out of the ground. As you said, zinc demands are very early in the plant's life. Basically what zinc does is it's necessary for the synthesis of auxins, which basically means it helps get the growth hormones and proteins growing in the plant. Obviously it's important for the seed germination and emergence. Zinc also plays a role in the forming of the vascular tissue, the xylem. Basically what that does is it is the tissue that carries water and nutrients up in the plant. It's essential for maturing the plant as well as forming chloroplasts within the cells and cell elongation.
We've seen a lot of opportunities with zinc, guys using a good rate of zinc in their starter fertilizers or on the seed where better test weight and then dry down. Brad, have you seen any of the results with zinc?
Definitely. Most guys that put down zinc in the starter, that's one of the reasons we do it is for the early start and the better dry down and test weight at maturity.
So here's some tissue samples that we've done over the last year of 2009, and you can see the yellow line here on the bottom is a sufficient level, and zinc was fine early on. This was tested on Cropland Genetics corn in our answer plot system, and all the Cropland Genetics corn is treated with zinc on the seed. So we really didn't have any deficiencies early on at V2 to V4 stage. But going through V5 to V8, we really started running out of some zinc on about half or over half of our crop nutrients. And depending upon the application of your herbicide program, you may have tied up more zinc, being that is a metal, and you may have more tissue samples deficient with certain applications of certain herbicides. Manganese. Looking here at that demand curve, kind of starts out strong and ends strong as well. Kind of another good micronutrient that we need to keep an eye on, Brad. And a couple things on manganese. What does it do in a corn plant? Basically,
Manganese helps the plant utilize other nutrients more efficiently. You can see here it is essential for the more efficient use of nitrogen as well as phosphorus and magnesium. Manganese is also has a key role in photosynthesis, which is how a plant makes its own food.
A lot of times guys think of that too as for essential nodulation on soybeans. Good reminder for guys looking at that micronutrient in a soybean plant. And here again are tissue samples from 2009. Most of them were sufficient, not too bad. As soon as we applied some herbicide, though, it did tie up some of it, and maybe half our samples were deficient through V8 growth stage. Boron, it's been called the forklift in the plant. You can see the demand for that early on is very well in corn, as well as 25 parts per million. Diminishes as the growing season goes on in the plant development. Brad, a couple things that boron does in the the corn plant.
Boron is essential for reproduction in the plant. It aids in the pollen and fertilization process. It's also important for early growth within a corn plant as well.
Here's some tissue samples on boron, not too bad. Looking at about half of them again, all being tied up, or I should say deficient, from V2 to V4 stage through the whole growing season actually. So all of a sudden we started seeing some demand for boron in our tissue samples from 2009. We look at how we can correct this, and there's products out in the industry, and what we've done is created a product with the demand and the micronutrients at the time. We're looking at Max-In ZMB for corn. Been out a few years. This goes back to 2008 data, and it's South Dakota and Southwest Minnesota data. Multiple hybrids, multiple farmer side-by-sides. Got a nice 9 bushel yield response. And this goes on at a quart per acre as a micronutrient pack. You can spray it by itself, or you can tank mix it with a lot of products. There's just a few tank mixing reminders, do's and don'ts. 2009, we threw all of our plot data together, and we had up to 35 bushel response. Over 3/4 of our sites did have response to them. So nice responses for 2009. We're excited for 2010 as well. What we want to get our hands around is tissue sampling, so that we know what we're starting with in that tissue, that corn plant, and then prescribe to you a recommendation. So if we look at this as an example, we put everything deficient, and it gives you on the right recommendations of some products that you could use to help correct some of these deficiencies of your 3 major nutrients plus your micronutrients. So this could actually help you with a side dress opportunity if we felt the tissue samples called for a lot of nitrogen yet. And then we want to focus on the micros and something we can foliar apply to help correct that deficiency before the year is over. We want to make sure we record the V stage that we sample these at. So for example, if you're out there at V2, you probably want to collect about 30 plants randomly throughout your field, and then revisit it at V12 and again at R1. So it's kind of a step process, knowing what we have in the plant, and then following up with an application if needed, and then scorecarding ourselves to understand what we got back into that plant and correct the deficiency. So on behalf of Cropland Genetics and Agri Solutions, I'd like to thank Brad for spending time with us today from FCA Co-op. And keep in mind, you can find this and other crop cams only on us104.net.